Hello and welcome to Nutshell Recaps. This video explains the synopsis of the movie, Nightcrawler. Warning, there will be spoilers, so proceed with caution. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, it will really help our channel grow. Lewis breaks into an abandoned train yard in Los Angeles at the dead of night and begins to take down a chain link fence. He sees a light approaching abruptly, so he hastily hides his equipment before a security guard finds him and requests identification. Lewis approaches the guard while acting cooperative, but instead of taking his watch, he attacks him to knock him unconscious. Following a protracted pricing negotiation, Lewis visits a scrapyard and sells the fence to the foreman. He then questions whether the foreman is hiring while trying to pitch himself with a ton of business speak. When the foreman declines right away, Lewis requests an unpaid internship to gain experience. But the foreman declares that he will never employ a thief, implying that he is aware of Lewis' source for the fence. Later, Lewis notices some police cars going by while he is driving and stops to find out what the noise is all about. It turns out that there was an accident and that the passengers inside the burning car are still alive. Lewis observes with great interest and attention as Joe and his employee arrive to videotape everything at that precise moment. When they're through, Lewis asks Joe about his work, to which he replies that he's a stringer, someone who goes to crime scenes or accidents to quickly capture everything, then sells the tape to the newscast that offers the highest compensation. A police scanner and a camera are all that a stringer needs. Lewis asks Joe if he's hiring because the position looks appealing, but Joe responds negatively. Lewis is even more keen to enter this industry after watching the disaster on TV the following day. He walks to the beach, waits for a guy to become sidetracked, and then proceeds to pawn off his bike. No matter how much Lewis begs, the store owner won't budge on the price. Instead, he requests store credit in exchange for a police scanner and a camcorder. He starts listening to all of the local reports that evening using the scanner, only to discover that he needs to locate a decent way to get there swiftly and that he doesn't comprehend the codes. When he first shows up for a routine arrest, the police send him away right away. The authorities swiftly eject him as he attempts to record a woman who was pulled over for driving while intoxicated. When he finally arrives at the site of a tragic carjacking, he is able to take some really gruesome video of the victim. Lewis and another stringer are promptly kicked out by an enraged police officer who also curses Lewis for not being able to complete filming. Ignoring his ire, Lewis pursues him to overhear their phone discussion in order to learn how to haggle and set fair prices with newscasts. Lewis then heads over to Channel 6 and plays the tape for Nina, the news director, who is blown away by how close he came. Frank, the producer, flips out when she contacts him and says they can't use such explicit photos on a morning program. Nina agrees to purchase the video, telling him they'll merely add a warning and reminding him that she is in charge. Lewis tries to bargain, but ultimately doesn't get the amount of money he was hoping for. Nevertheless, Nina tells him he has a lot of promise and that all he needs is a better camera because his current image quality isn't that great. Lewis inquires about the best way to increase ratings since she's eager to purchase more from him in the future. Nina responds that their viewers are drawn to violent crimes and gruesome mishaps in wealthy, white neighborhoods. When Lewis watches his video the following morning on TV, he feels as though he has finally accomplished something. He saves the news tape to his computer and looks for a list of police codes online so he can learn what they signify. Afterwards, he has an interview with a young man named Rick. Once more, he employs a lot of business jargon to interrogate Rick and force him to sell himself. But in the end, he hires him because he has a phone, is familiar with the area, and is proficient with GPS. Rick objects, saying that since he is nearly homeless, he should be paid at least a small amount when Lewis discloses that this internship is unpaid. Following much debate, Lewis decides to give him $30 a night. Rick and Lewis take advantage of the evening to teach Rick the police codes while they wait in the car and listen to the police scanner for a noteworthy incident. They finally hear of a fire after several hours of silence, so they head over there. Because Lewis is anxious to get to the scene first, he drives like a madman and yells at Rick, who is meant to utilize the GPS to identify the fattest route and provide directions. As Rick becomes agitated, he gives him the incorrect directions by mistake, and by the time they arrive at the correct location, the paramedics have already wheeled the victim away, making it too late. Rick requests Joe to stop rushing him after he is teased by Joe for being late. This makes Lewis upset with Rick and expects improved communication. The next time they have a strong lead, Lewis doesn't scream at Rick, and they make it in time. But the police have sealed off the looted residence, so nothing noteworthy can be documented. Refusing to let up, Lewis waits for the police to become sidetracked before slinking inside the house to discover the bullet holes in the kitchen. In order to make the footage appear more terrible, he rearranges the photos on the fridge around the holes. The film concludes with the victim speaking to the police through the holes in the window. He grabs some junk mail to obtain the victims' names before making his getaway. Lewis shows Nina the tape a little while later, and she's enthralled by it. Even though it's obvious that Lewis broke in and the names were taken from personal correspondence, Frank gets alarmed, and Nina uses it nevertheless. From then on, Lewis and Rick have a lot of success in finding interesting stories to capture and subsequently sell to Nina. Rick determines Lewis's fastest routes to the area, and although he avoids the police, Lewis records every grim detail shamelessly. He downloads every clip to build a library on his computer and watches TV every day to see his own work on screen. He buys a better camera for himself and another for Rick so he can record from an alternate viewpoint once he has enough money. They arrive at an automobile accident one evening ahead of the police. One of the drivers, who is sobbing because he's trying so hard to talk to the 911 operator, swears at Lewis when he tries to interview him. Lewis then proceeds to examine the wrecked automobiles and discovers the other driver dead in a shadowy spot. To get a better picture, he drives the body till it is in front of the car lights. He records all he can until the police show there and take him into custody. Joe knows he's lost this one when he watches him walk by. When Lewis shows Nana the video later, she sees that he has blood on his sleeve, but he asks her to dinner instead of acknowledging her presence. Nana first declines him, stating that she doesn't want to jeopardize their working relationship. She is forced to accept, though, since Lewis seems to be implying that if she says no, he will stop providing her with high-quality footage. The following day, Joe runs into Lewis and tells him he wants to join him because he wants to expand his team by hiring different bands. Joe persists and Lewis rejects him, threatening to use violence against him. Joe, filled with rage, storms off, cursing Lewis' name. When Saturday finally arrives, Lewis tells Nana he wants to be his lover over dinner at a restaurant. Nana declines him once more, claiming that this was merely a matter of professional etiquette. Lewis jumps right in, quoting a ton of statistics he's discovered during his investigation, pointing out that her station has the lowest rating and that his videos have attracted thousands of new viewers. He is aware that Nana's contract is about to expire and that she needs to accept his offer in order to keep her employment. Reluctantly, Nana is forced to start going out with Lewis on the weekends to do bad things in exchange for his selling the films to her alone. A while later, Rick makes another error on the route, and Lewis is late for the evening's major incident. Joe makes fun of Lewis when he and his group watch all the film first. Lewis ends the evening by showing Nana several recordings of lesser-known murders, and Nana becomes enraged because she believes their competitor station will air the major story instead. She feels as like she has offered her body to him for nothing, and her supervisors will be quite angry. Lewis breaks his bathroom mirror the following morning after seeing Joe's film on the rival channel and becoming extremely enraged. He chooses to sneak into Joe's house and tamper with his van out of a desire for vengeance. Lewis and Rick show up that evening, barely in time to capture an automobile crash on camera. It turns out that this is Joe's van, and the ambulance is taking him away because he was gravely injured in the collision. Rick believes that filming a fellow stringer is improper and claims that Joe is one of them, but Lewis doesn't seem to mind and approaches to record everything. Joe chokes on his own blood and gives Lewis a ferocious gaze. A few nights later, Lewis and Rick are quick enough to arrive at a massive, broken-in mansion before the police do. When Lewis peeks inside and witnesses the thieves leaving the scene, he ducks behind some bushes to take pictures of their faces and the license plate of their vehicle. Lewis then enters the home and follows the trail to locate each victim's body, noting every drop of blood on the ground. Lewis makes sure to record each one individually, even including the scene with an empty cot and enough buildup to give the impression that a dead infant might be within. He discovers the man is still alive when he discovers the last body, but rather than assisting him, he records him as well and then flees with Rick just before the cops show up. After a few blocks, they come to a stop so Lewis can quickly remove the perpetrators and the live victim from the video. Shortly after, he shows Nana the footage, and she is blown away. Frank freaked out as usual, so Nana makes sure this is legal by calling the channel's attorney. The attorney clarifies that although there are boundaries being blurred, everything should be okay as long as the victims' faces are hidden and the address is kept a secret. Lewis then becomes irrational when Nana refuses to pay him the $15,000 he demands for the footage. He makes it clear that he is in charge here, so she has to pay him whatever he requests without objecting, make sure the anchors mention his company, Video Production News, and introduce Lewis to every employee so he can start building relationships. Nana can only agree, horrified. Lewis stays and observes with satisfaction as the anchors mention his company throughout the presentation of the tape when it's finally time to go live. Nana keeps providing the anchors the signals to make the crime scene descriptions more dramatic, violent, and frightening. The anchors must also explain the scene of the crime. Nana receives a call from her superiors congratulating her and requesting to meet Lewis after the commercial break. Detective Frontieri and her partner visit Lewis' flat the following morning with some questions for him. Inventing a tale, Lewis claims he heard the gunshots and went into the house with the intention of helping, but it was too late, so he began filming instead. He recalls seeing a van drive off, but he missed the faces of the robbers. Though not persuaded, the investigators leave as they are at a loss for what to do. Lewis then looks up the license plate online and finds one of the crooks' addresses. Along with Rick, he travels there, and they wait for the criminal to emerge outside the house. When Rick sees the vehicle, he asks Lewis why he won't notify the police right away. Lewis says he wants the crooks to go somewhere nicer in the hopes that they'll fight being arrested and fabricate a better tale. This is getting too risky, says Rick in a panic, and he demands a rise. When Rick offers to pay $75 a night, Lewis forces him to select the amount, and Lewis quickly closes the sale. Rick realizes from his response that he could have asked for much more, but Lewis informs him it's too late when he attempts to ask for a better amount. The two watch as the thief eventually leaves the residence and picks up his companion. They then pursue them until the offenders make a stop at a fast food establishment. When Lewis does phone the police, he provides them with thorough details and informs them that the crooks are armed. In addition, he identifies himself as the one who located them and makes it clear that these are the individuals from the historic crime who are wanted. Rick knows he'll ask for the reward the cops put on these individuals and requests half of it once Louis hangs up. Rick moves to the other side of the restaurant and Louis becomes enraged. But he agrees to pay since he truly needs a second camera for those additional viewpoints. When the police come, the criminals open fire on them, resulting in a gunfight that claims the lives of multiple individuals. Rick and Louis record everything while one of the crooks is also dead and the other is hurt but is still able to flee by running and getting into his van. The police come after him right away and Louis first scoops up Rick before pursuing them. Louis continues yelling at Rick so that he won't stop filming while he drives like an insane person. A civilian car collides with a police vehicle during the insane car chase, eliminating the police vehicle from the game. The criminal keeps following the other police car, and he starts crashing his van into their car until both he and the cops get into an accident. Louis declares the culprit is dead as he quickly races to obtain a picture of every body. In order to find out more about the graphic images, he invites Rick to come and record. However, when Rick approaches, the criminal, who is actually still alive, shoots Rick down. The culprit gets out of the car, but before he can harm Louis, he hears the police approaching and tries to flee. Louis doesn't appear surprised and keeps filming. But the police also shot him down right away. After that, Rick learns that Louis had been aware the criminal was still alive and had taken advantage of him in order to obtain a better narrative when Louis visits him and notes his wounds. After Rick passes away, Louis steals his camera with no regrets. When Louis shows Nina the entire tape later, she is thrilled by all the graphic content. As they prepare to go live, Frank tells her that he has received information from a reliable, hidden source that the family was actually harboring illegal substances and wasn't just a group of violent criminals inside the house. Nina, on the other hand, says the tragedy of the common guy sells more and won't include that information in the story. Nina accepts Frank's remark that she sounds like Louis positively, stating that Louis has motivated them to aim higher. Later, when investigator Frontieri visits the station, she demands to see the video since it is proof, but Nina won't give the tapes up without a warrant. Louis then follows Frontieri to the station so they may question him, but he remains composed and tells his side of the tale. Frontier calls him out for his absurd and immoral work policies as she grows more and more enraged, but she is forced to release him as she lacks supporting documentation. Louis hires 3 interns and purchases 2 vehicles bearing the video production news brand a few nights later. Before they depart together in search of the next story, he guarantees that none of them will be forced to perform tasks that he wouldn't perform himself.